has been in these meetings before, but I'm gonna make sure that Rosie has a good understanding about the meetings and our history. So, and what is the dynamic for these meetings? So, when I want to start by sharing with you how we start. We start actually these meetings here in Denver, Colorado, but I am actually from Bogota, Colombia. So we are vecinas. And I've been here for 30 years. And before actually here, I live in Switzerland and in Geneva for 2 years. And then I live in France for 2 years, ended up here. So, but the meetings actually start here. About actually last night, I was thinking about how long ago we start these meetings. And I think that we started these meetings about 8 years ago, and that was actually in person. We started these meetings in person here in Denver with Jeff Campos. Yes. So we had, this is actually, it was, when you have an idea and then you start kind of shaping it and shaping it and shaping it. So the first, we start this as a educational committee. That was the first, and then we move it to having the women's like gatherings and dinners, and then we move it virtually. So, and here we are. Yep. So that's the story of this Global Women Online Network. And the way that we really like to do this meeting is very informal. We like to learn something. We want us to leave out of this meeting with something new, even a reflection. Reflection is a big part of this group because as women, we are so reflective, and that's one of the gifts that we have. I don't know if you agree, but that's what I noticed. But it's just we like to really reflect, and this is a space to reflect and to support each other also. So, Rosie, we usually go around, we introduce ourselves. We actually share where we are located because this is a global meeting. So people is like yourself, and I am in another place. Everybody's in a different location. So, and then we share about what kind of business we do or what kind of company we work for. And also very specific. We try to be very specific about what will be a good lead for us. It's so important for us to say, well, this is what I'm looking for. Will be a good lead for me. The more specific we are, the better. And then I usually add a little bit of the question, so we answer something. And today, because this is the last meeting of the year, I will actually say, let's share what we have learned this year. Let's share what we have learned. So, and then we pass to the meeting to somebody else. So I'm going to start myself. So you'll see how we'll do it. And then we just go around. So my name is Maria Pannan, and I am located in Denver, Colorado, but I am from Bogota, Colombia. I have been here for 30 years. I actually oversee I am the executive director of the DEI Leadership Institute. This is an educational online institution that actually we work with leaders, providing them with the tools for diversity, equity, and inclusion. We work with around the world. Actually, we are working with London and with Africa right now. So that's very exciting. A good lead for me is actually any leader who really want to learn, because the certification is not a check the box. The certification is a weeks program, and they have to actually cover the 42 modules. And they learn about history, they learn about laws, they learn about measurements, they learn about everything. This is the only certification, actually, especially in Colorado, that is actually aligned with the U.S. Department of Education. So it's a really good certification to have if you really are serious about DEI. Let's see what I have learned this year. I have really learned the power of investing on our social capital. Yes, I cannot say how important that is. I had the opportunity to put this year a conference, and I gotta say, really pay off to have invest in social capital. People really, I reach out to people support me. We ended up having a really good annual conference. That was the first conference. And when you put your first conference for profit, because I used to put conference, but it wasn't for no profit because it was for the school districts. It's a big difference. Now, when you have to have a budget, when you have to have sponsors, when you have so many vendors. So learning a lot about how actually to do a conference at that level, I learned a lot. So much to learn. I mean, I feel like, I don't know. I can tell you right now, one is when you have an idea, put a big event. Other part is when you really walk every step and when you're trying to utilize everything. So that was my big learn, is that it really pays off to have to invest in social capital. So what we're doing today, this is part of what we should do more and more. So that's it. And I'm going to pass it to Deborah.
Morning, everyone. I'm Deb Young. I'm co-founder, managing partner of Sure Velocity. I too am in Denver with Maria. What I have learned this year is balance. I've learned to have to balance being an owner of a growing organization. If I don't find balance for myself, I just don't feel good. So I've worked really hard on keeping that balance in my life. Good connections for me are also anyone that's looking. I do executive recruiting, so I get hired by companies to find them C-level executives. I've also, the other thing I found is that everyone has a story, and you have to be able to listen. Listening is, I think, a lost art. So I've been really working on the listening skills and trying to teach the people in my company about the importance of listening. So
thank you, Deborah. Thank you, Deborah. That's so important. Balance and listening. Do you want to call someone?
Oh, I'm sorry. Rosie.
Thank you, Deborah. So like I was saying, my name is Rosie Lopez Gross, and I'm currently in Playa del Carmen. We are snowbirds because we're in Canada. We come to Mexico for 2 months. So we spend the whole month of December and January here in Mexico. We just arrived a couple of days ago. So we actually have some people working on the ACs in the apartment because they weren't working, but they're not making too much noise. So that's good. I work for Athenian, which is a software. It's a software in legal tech. And what the software does is that it helps companies with a global presence manage all their legal entities. So it helps, as it is like a central single source of truth of all their legal entities information, who the directors are, what their share structure is. It helps them make like these complicated corporate charts, registrations, register addresses, etc. And it also helps to stay on top of all their compliance, the mandatory compliance, the renewal of their licenses, annual returns, filings, etc. And this year has been a big learning experience for me. So I'm glad that we're sharing this. I've been working, I joined Athenian in May of this year, and I am a consultant for global operations. But what I've been doing for the past 10 years is actually what Athenian, I was the lead or the target customer for Athenian. I came to Athenian as a customer first, and then I joined as a consultant. So my background is in law. I have a law degree from Venezuela. And then when I moved to Canada, I studied my graduate program in Canada, not in law. And the way I found to continue working with my law degree in a new country was by working in project management for market expansion and also to maintain legal entities. So I worked with companies that had a global presence, I helped the company open in over 20 countries. In my last company, I helped the company open in 75 countries. But then my team would also maintain that infrastructure in those countries in terms of legal compliance. So I was looking for a solution for my team in terms of a technology that would help us keep everything organized, because we were working off of spreadsheets and different softwares, Asana and Notion, and all the information was spread. And we found a opinion. My former team actually has opinion now, but after the sales process was completed, the CEO of Opinion approached me and asked me if I wanted to join his company. So to me, that was a huge decision. I was happy doing what I've been doing for 10 years. He was the one who pointed out, you have all this experience, we need that knowledge in our company. And so to me, the big learning was the importance of leaving your comfort zone, challenging yourself, believing in that the knowledge you have and the experience you have is valuable. Like I said, it wasn't an easy process. I was at Remote, which is an employer of record company, at the international operations team. And yeah, I went through a lot of self-doubt, imposter syndrome. I was thinking, I bet there's someone else out there that maybe has more experience than me, or maybe is a better fit than me. But then I realized, why not me? And I decided to move, and it was a great experience so far. Every day is different. I'm learning a lot, not only about the company, but a lot about myself. I've been able to bring value since day one. And yeah, so I see the impact of my work day to day in the product development, in the conversations we have with customers, in the information that I've been able to put together to the sales team for self-enablement. So yeah, that has been my journey this year, and I've learned a lot from it.
That's a big
And
one.
yes, thank you for having me today. I've been wanting to join. We've been members of the Global Chamber for 2 months, I think, but I wasn't able to join before. So I look forward to the next meeting. And I'm going to pass it on to Dana.
Thank you. Let me ask, yeah, Dana, could you please turn your camera on? We would love to see faces, unless you're driving or something. I understand, but we'll love to see faces. Otherwise,
Sorry, I forgot to tell you what the ideal lead for us is.
yes,
so for
please.
us, yeah, a good lead is what we call an ideal customer profile. Are companies with more than 20 legal entities in at least 5 countries. And usually these are companies that are in a highly regulated industry, oil and gas or health or employment of record, and yeah, that type of companies. But the key point is to have more than 20 legal entities in at least 5 countries.
Okay, perfect. Thank you for saying that. That's important. I don't know. I don't really know if Dana is there. Go ahead, Anita. Let's go ahead with you, if you don't mind. I just want to make sure. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, no, that's fine. So good morning, everybody, or good afternoon from semi-sunny Southern California. It's a little cloudy here in Manhattan Beach, but I'll take it. It's the cold. My name is Anita Rodal. I'm the president of SBPI Services. I represent 2 of the world's largest non-bank foreign exchange companies. They save their import and transnational clients money and time when sending and receiving cross-border payments. I'm also a corporate trainer. My About Your Elevator Pitch webinars and workbook are for business professionals who do B2B networking like we're doing here, while my private pronunciation coaching is for foreigners looking to reduce their accents when speaking English, and I will specify that that is California English, which is very close to network English. I have learned a lot this year. I've learned that I hate building my own website, and yet I've had to learn how to do it. I've had to learn how to connect websites to payment processing organizations, because my stuff is electronically delivered, so it's not like I can go on what is the one that everybody uses, Shopify. They're not designed for electronically delivered products. So it adds a whole nother layer, and I would make that a layer of frustration. But at the end of the day, finally got it working. But you have to jump in and do what you have to do. So that was the choice I made. In terms of good leads, since there are several things I do, I would say that for currency exchange, I look for importers, basically, typically from the US, as long as they're not importing from China or India, because those countries get paid in US dollars. Therefore, there's no currency exchange going on. But I can open accounts for people in Mexico, in Canada, in the European Union, the UK, so a lot of different places. So anybody who's importing, again, not from India or China, and is located anywhere in North America, Europe, UK, those are basically my bread and butter. For let's see, for the elevator pitch. I look to connect with sales directors for companies, anybody who's in charge of people underneath them who are, out and about going to networking meetings such as this. For the currency exchange, sorry, it's early. For pronunciation coaching, I look for either executives or business people who feel that they're not being understood. That happens a lot with engineers who tend to be put in charge of teams. A lot of them are maybe from India, from other countries where people just aren't getting what they're saying. But I also work with diplomats and I work a lot with actors. So actors coming from other countries where they're tired of being typecast. If they come from Colombia or Venezuela or Chile or España or Mexico, they're sick and tired of being typecast as the maid or the drug trafficker's wife. So they have to lose their accents. So actors are a big part of my pronunciation coaching business. I am also starting a monthly Globinar for the Global Chamber. And it is specifically for people who are importing and exporting, basically making cross-border payments. So it's not always going to be just about the importing and exporting. It may be about investing in real estate in a foreign country, incoming or outgoing, depending on where you're located, things of that sort. So if you know anybody who is in importing or exporting anywhere in the world, please put them in touch with me or tell them about the webinar. That we haven't finalized the schedule, but we have committed to going monthly in starting in January. We did our first one on November 16th and it was great. I learned a lot from doing that. Don't try and coordinate 4 speakers. It's tough. Right? So we're going to cut it down to 2. So I'd really appreciate your help with building that, and feel free to jump on that as well. Keep an eye out for it. It'll be called either a conversation about importing and exporting or importing, exporting, global real estate or something or other, but just keep an eye out for it, please. Thanks.
Thank you, Anita, and congratulations on your new webinar. I wish you the best. I think that that's something that we need in the Global Chamber. From my experience working with a lot of companies, couple things, and I can share this with you. One is a lot of people really want to do the business, but they don't know how. The how is so important. I think that sometimes we forget just the basic steps to do something like that. So I would love to join one of your Globinars. It sounds very interesting. And I think that having that support in the chamber is key. So I wish you the best. And I hope to, as soon as you have your calendar for 2024, I will check it out. So, and yes, absolutely, having speakers is it's something that you learn as you go. Something with the speaker that I learned not to, I will tell you one not to, is sometimes when people, especially in this setting, it's very hard to keep people focus, people attention. And sometimes when the speakers put presentation, you lose the audience. something that I notice is I have to say always, you're gonna put a slide, how long is gonna be? And I was like, because when they put a slide and they start talking, I mean, sometimes people get, you lose the audience, you lose the people. So that's one of the risky things and one of the challenging things to do. So, well, I wish you the best.
It's actually conversations, it's interviews. It's like little Katie Couric segments. So I'm actually interviewing them and asking them questions. So yeah, I agree. It's not about throwing information up. It's literally a conversation about importing and exporting. So I agree with you. It just, people fade out or walk out when you have a lot of PowerPoint.
Yes, absolutely. So, okay. So I, what you guys said really caught my attention, and I would like, Deborah, if you don't mind, you were talking about listening. So, listening is a really one of the biggest skills that we should work on. We should develop. We should be better at, especially in a business or in life. Actually, it's so interesting when we are present and we listened, but I would like to hear from Deborah a little bit more about the listening part, because that was one of the things that you learned this year, and then we can go and jump and get into the conversation.
Yeah, I think people, at least in my job, I have to pay close attention to when I'm talking with candidates and give them the opportunity to tell me their professional journey, their story. And you have to be able to listen, to be able to pick out from the conversation as to what that next question is going to be, to try to really get to what it is that I need to find out, in order to make sure that they are right for my client. So I think allowing people to be themselves and to give them the platform to be able to tell their story is huge, so that I can bring, because you know, when you really listen to what people have to say, sometimes there's these little tiny nuggets that, like, if you weren't really listening, you would have missed. And that could be like the key to getting them in the door at your client's place, and potentially a better opportunity, better pay, better schools, whatever location it may be. And then also from the client side, I find that a lot of people go into like my business and they just, when you're trying to sell your services or your product, if you just basically regurgitate what it is that you do versus doing the active solution selling, and in order to solution sell, you have to be a good listener to be able to know when to ask the next question. So teaching people in my company about the importance of hearing the client's problem and how you're going to solve the problem versus, hey, this is what we do you need our services? Because it just doesn't work that way anymore. And I really think with so much stuff happening on social media and on our phones all day long, and I think we've lost the ability to really hear people and what they're saying. And I think we get so caught up. So I've been really working on being a better listener to my family, to the people that work in my company, to my clients, to my candidates, because at the end of the day, everyone deserves to be heard, whether you agree with them or not. I don't know. That's my take on it, Maria. That's how I'm really focusing on trying, because at the end of the day, your job is to help someone, some company, work through an issue, a problem, a challenge, a role, whatever it may be.
No, I really appreciate that you brought that up, because I agree. I think the social media is great, but it's I think that we've been losing the basic skills of writing, reading, listening. So we are no machines. So I think that I learned how important it is. I was a hospice volunteer for 10 years. And when you have to just sit there and be present and listen, it's not about you anymore. It's not about what you said. It's not putting words in the air. It's such a precious gift that we give to others. So what you're doing on paying, listening to you, to yourself to begin with, to ourselves, to our family, to the people that we work, that's respect, that's love, that's caring. And we usually don't talk about those things. And that is fundamental as human beings. We are human beings. We need that. So, oh my God, I got the chills. Thank you so much for talking about that. That is so important. One question that I have for you, especially because of the work that you do, what do you think about the companies who are investing on the technology of artificial intelligence to hire people? What is your thought on that?
I was just gonna say, I use AI when I've been using AI when I interview candidates now, so that I can be front and present with that person and listen and hear what they have to say, versus writing everything down and trying to memorialize stuff so I can present to my client, this individual. So that's how I use AI for me in my role. It's to help me be more engaged with the person that I'm talking to. Circling back to listening, I think AI, we're going to see a huge shift in skill sets, because people are going to have to, who have a role now that's being taken over by AI. I still, maybe I'm old school, but I still think the human connection, customer service, and I almost feel like we almost have too much technology, and we need to get back to the basics. And a lot of people's jobs are getting eliminated by AI, but I think it's going to come. I think it has to come around full circle back to people are really what make the world go round. It's not technology. People get so caught up in this newest and fanciest and greatest thing, and I think you lose sight of really why we're all here.
Absolutely. And I don't know, I believe you are aware of, some of the companies that have been using that, like Amazon and other technology companies, and they actually program the algorithms. So as far as DEI, there are no equity on the way that you are hiring people. We had a conversation with the Colorado Attorney General office a couple of weeks ago. And we are going to have actually a conversation about that specifically to the companies who are using this technology and recruiting and Spring. But yes, they are able to tweak, and yeah, it's just kind of crazy. I agree with you. Technology is good, but we cannot just rely. We are people. We cannot forget that we are people. And maybe I am old school like you. I believe in more the one-on-one. I believe in, So, any thought about that, Anita?
Yeah, I think about that a lot because when I'm reaching out to people, I'm conscientiously trying to grow my LinkedIn process. And for the first time, and ever, they said I've used up all of my notes that I can send people. So I feel like I've been voiceless for the last 2 weeks. It resets after November 1st. They're trying to get me to upgrade. But at any rate, when people send you a message and you want to reply, I do not like that they supply these canned things. Even if what I was going to say was that, I would always add, exclamation mark or the person's name or whatever. And I make a point of making sure that I don't ever hit the automatic reply, because I cannot and do not want to believe that somebody is thoughtlessly replying to me when I take the time to write to them, because the whole point of LinkedIn is you want to get to know people. If it's just a matter of adding names to a phone book, we could do that ad nauseum. I want to believe that when I reach out to somebody, I'm getting, a personal return as well, because I'm looking for connections, like literal connections. How do you do business with people if you're not really connected? I don't want an interface in there. So I see the value of AI. I will probably be very late to the table in terms of using it for anything, just because having dealt with a lot of people around the world and translations, it captures what you say, but people don't always say things correctly or whatever, and there's room for misinterpretation in that as well. You could just as easily record it, on a Zoom chat or something, on your cell phone, and at least you'd get the context of everything, not just a written format, which is often inaccurate. So that's
Yep, totally.
my
What
thought.
what do you, Rosie, what are your thoughts?
I wrote down a couple things. One about this. I think everybody with social media, like you said, Deborah, is so focused on having a voice that they don't pay attention about what other people are saying and how to use that information to change their minds, to see what's right or wrong about what people are saying. They're so focused on having a voice, having an opinion, having a say on every single matter that's out in the world. For example, I recently not closed permanently, but just deleted Instagram from my phone, just because I needed a break from. I do follow the news on the conflict in Israel and in Gaza, but seeing people that just wanted to have a stand, just for the sake of having a stand, without really listening to both sides and focusing on the people, on the human rights issues. It's so complex. It's not as easy as just having a stand, right? And so I think that's a good example on how people are just focusing on having a voice and not really listening. Another thing that you said, Maria, is about how using AI, for example, or on recruitment, that the diversity element is missed. I remember back in the day in Latin America, in resumes, we used to put whether we were married or not. We had to put a photo. Some people would put like very personal things that we now don't do that anymore. But now I'm thinking, are people going back to adding those elements so people know they're part of minority, so people know they're, so they get part, so the diversity quota or the diversity element is there. So I was just thinking about that. I don't know what's going to happen with that, but you're right. If we use AI and algorithms to pick the people just based on skills and experience and leaving out the DEI element, then are we going backwards in that sense on saying other things that you can only see if you are in a face-to-face or in a meeting with people? Yeah, those were the things that I was thinking about while you were talking.
Thank you so much. I think this is important because actually we touched about, I always think about, and I don't know you, but what is going on with social media and why is that need to be recognized? There is something else there. Social media is just uncovering so much. I don't know. There is a layer of belonging. It's a layer of being recognized, being noticed. I don't know. It's something, because yes, you're right. I give up in so many ways in social media because I feel the same way. I feel like people just want to say something just to be there. And that is, I read only content. For example, for me, is if there is something that I really interested, I read it. I really spend the time. And when I put something out, I'm thoughtful about putting something out. And LinkedIn is the one that I use the most, actually. Facebook, it was something that I used to use, but not with family and some friends, but not for business, for example. So I think that it's a very interesting question. We're gonna go with Rosie. You mentioned something that I think we all relate with, is moving ourselves from the comfort zone. And that was your big lesson about comfort zone. Comfort zone is, oh my gosh, we don't know. sometimes we don't know if it's gonna work. You didn't know if that was gonna work. I mean, we make the best decisions sometimes, but we don't know.
Yeah, I still don't know. I mean, I've been in this
You
position
have it.
for a few months now, and I still don't know. Yeah.
But you took it's a risk, but it's easier
Yes.
to stay where you were. And it's easy
Yes.
for us. I mean, I think we all relate. So I want you to share with us more about your internal process of, I know you mentioned that you have, the imposter syndrome. But now you reflect, what are you proud of? Are you proud of that, making that, even though you don't know yet?
Yeah, I am proud of making the decision, because when I try to rationalize my thinking process during the time I was making the decision, everything pointed out to no, to don't do it. I mean, the risks were more than the benefits that I was seeing at the time. And so I had to go back in time to those times where I felt the rush of making a change and what happened. So for example, leaving my home country back in 2007 and moving to Canada, that was a huge going out of my comfort zone, going to this new country, starting something. So I connected with that feeling and what the benefits were for doing that, and they were huge. And again, I had no clue. I had no idea what was going to happen. Then I worked in the nonprofit sector for 7 years. I worked for Make-A-Wish Foundation. That was my very first job out of school in Canada. I was doing an internship with Make-A-Wish, and then they hired me right after school. And again, that became my comfort zone. It was a small office with 7 ladies, and I stayed there for 7 years. So when a friend of mine offered me a job at the company she was working on, and I did a lot of import-export, actually, Anita, because it's a hardware company called starttech.com. And that's the company I helped open in 23 countries. And part of the process of the project management of the project, for the market expansion, was to put the product in the countries. So I remember making that change, and my first alarm was, no, don't do it. You have a law degree, then you've been working in the nonprofit sector in finance and admin for 7 years. What value do you bring to these people? You don't know enough. So that was the imposter syndrome in my mind telling me not to do it. But again, I went back to the feeling of what happened when I took the leap of faith and did it, and then it turned out into the career I've been doing for the past 10 years. So I guess my advice is, there's always going to be this loud voice in your head telling you not to do it. That's, I guess, the survival mode in us. Even my close family and my husband was like, are you sure? You have a really good job. I was at Remote, which is an employer of record company, for the past 2.5 years. And it was a fully remote company, very flexible, a software company, a startup that became huge. Like, I became a unicorn while I was there. I was employee 105. And when I left, we were over 1,000 employees. And I was part of all that growth. And so I was in a very safe place. But again, I missed going back to having another challenge and not having that systematic, very operational role. So far it's been good, but like I said, I don't know what's going to happen. But I think there are times where an opportunity comes to you, because again, this wasn't an opportunity that I seek. It came to me, and being able to recognize when it's a good opportunity, I guess we'll never know for sure, but taking the risk, I think, is worth it. What I was thinking is, okay, worst case scenario, I have my career, I have my connections, I can always go back to do what I've been doing in the past 10 years, which is market expansion and entity management. That experience is there for me to support me in the job seeking process. So, but if I don't take this opportunity, then what if it's good for me? What if it's a good learning experience? And that's what it has been to me so far. So yeah, I'm proud.
Thank you, Rosie. Do you guys want to share an experience that you ever have that you have to make decisions? I know Anita has.
Yeah, I mean, So first of all, imposter syndrome, I don't think there's a person on the planet that doesn't live with that. So you're in very good company. And what I've seen is that the smarter the person, the harder it hits them. Because every person I've ever heard talk about it or be willing to talk about it is someone, including yourself, from what little I've seen now, who is incredibly intelligent and accomplished. But here's my thought on it. At some point in time, you have to trust other people's judgment because they see what you allow them to see, what you show through your work. And if that's enough to convince them that they can teach you what you don't know, but the qualities that you have are what they're looking for, then just go with it. It's equally as hard like to accept a compliment. I don't know about you, but I find it excruciating. I don't know why. It's like we work so hard so people recognize us, and when they do, we're like, wait, what? Like, and I think that's part of imposter syndrome as well. It's like you don't even recognize what you've done well. So go with the flow. I always tell people, if you stay in one place, you can't possibly see what your options are outside of whatever options you can see at that moment. Even if you move millimetro to the right or the left or whatever it is, you get a different perspective. You can always step back. You can always step to the side. But if you never move, you'll never get a new perspective to figure out where you want to go. So congrats on taking that very painful step. And hey,
Thank you.
options, options, options.
Deborah, what are your thoughts on that? Thank you, Anita.
Rosie, what I look for in senior leadership candidates is their ability to flex. Because I work a lot in the lower middle market, private equity, venture capital, just kind of like your remote organization that you were at. And by the way, I know Jeremy Bloom, who was Make-A-Wish Foundation, is that correct? Yeah,
Yes.
he's
Yeah.
actually from Colorado. But anyway, I think from a career perspective, which parallels also moving geographically, but from a career perspective, moving from one organization to another is got the days of working for one company for 30 years, they're gone. And working with we certainly don't want people to be job hoppers, leaving every year. As soon as something gets that they don't like, they leave. But having different experiences and working in different organizations, you can bring best practices from each one of them. You've learned to work with different people. You've had to learn the skill set of diversity. You've had to I do personality assessment testing, so I've studied personality profiling in leadership roles. And one of the key things, I use Hogan, and one of the key things that Hogan talks about is having the ability to pivot. And if you're in one role in the same organization, siloed your whole career, you've never learned how to pivot. Because if you can't pivot, and I used that word flex before, you can't grow. And so moving geographically, I moved when I was 18 from Milwaukee, Wisconsin to Denver, Colorado. All my family's there. I came out here for college. It wasn't across the world, but it was a big step for an 18-year-old, and I never left. And I'm proud of myself that I did that. And I have my own company now. My career has just gone in all sorts. I was a music major in college, but I've had a couple different careers. But I think one of the things I tell my son, because he's 27 and he works at, I think I might have mentioned, at Deloitte, and I say you learn things from your managers and your bosses you may not like, but you also learn from them that maybe that's not what you will do when you're in management role. So you take every opportunity, and either you make lemonade out of lemons, you learn to flex, you learn change. Change is very uncomfortable for a lot of people. It's a hard pill to swallow, it really is, but you grow from every change you make.
Wow.
I look for people that have done like just phenomenal careers because they've learned how to do those things. They've taken advantage of the situations that they're in to their benefit.
Hmm.
That was a long response, but that's how I feel about it.
No, that's great. Love it. I think that we are giving our best here and are engaging in this conversation. It's so great to see how we apply in our professional lives and perhaps what advise people to do. So that's great. Then we're gonna actually, Anita, you mentioned something that I believe that, especially if you are not very young, you are not like, in millennium, is hard one, is technology. So you learn the technology. Oh my gosh, that's a challenge. I don't know, like, tell us a little bit about your process with technology. I know it's a challenge, but what did you learn through the process about you and about doing it?
It reinforced what I already knew. I used to have a technology company. I had a company called Accessing the World, and long before there was public access internet, I would go and put these kiosks in like airports and hotels and stuff, and then people would put their dollars in or their credit cards and they'd pay for the minutes. And I had to rely on the support people that did the software for it, and they were just incredibly fallible. And in one of my hotels, there was no like internet coverage, like cell coverage was very bad. So when there was problems, and there were always problems, I'd have to like go out into the patio for them to tell me something, then I'd have to go back. So they couldn't be walking me through fixing the problem, which I hated doing. One of my airports was Long Beach Airport. I had to wait until they basically closed when no more flights were coming in to be there. So I'd be there like I'd go in at 11 o'clock at night, and sometimes I'd be there till 1 in the morning. And all I could think of was I'm listening to them, but all I'm thinking is I hate this, I hate this, I hate this. So I already knew that I hated having to do that. I love what it does. And I'm a firm believer in letting people do what they do best. So I want a technology person to do it. But for a number of reasons, I realized I didn't have the time to walk somebody through it. And other than them actually doing it, like I'm the one that's writing the content and everything else. I know what I want. They never have the same critical eye. So ultimately, I'll let somebody else do it, but they'll have an example of what I want. Um, I learned that you have to advocate because all of this technology, like they say, oh, the template, you can build your own website. Well, it's not as intuitive that they think it is. It's intuitive to somebody who writes code, the person who created it. So what they should really do, and I won't even say they should give it to a 7-year-old because 7-year-olds are now raised with more technology savvy. So maybe they should give it to a 5-year-old, give it to an 85-year-old and see if that person can navigate it because they're never designed with people who truly don't come from a starting point of all this stuff makes sense to me. So I find them incredibly counterintuitive. And I am on the phone right and left, and a lot of them don't even have phone service. Like the people that I used for the download, the digital download people, um, they don't have that. So it's text. And I have to go through their website and text, and then they email me back, and then it's confusing as to can I respond to the email they send? Like there's nothing about it that runs the way I would want it to run as somebody who doesn't do it. So all I can tell you is do what you can do and then scream and advocate for yourself and be the squeaky wheel and don't stop until you get the answers because when they think they've answered your question, they have not. You still have to reword it. I've learned that I don't seem to word things the way they can hear what I'm asking. So my dad had this really cute saying that I actually got him from a little plaque that I bought at a flea market when I was in college. And it said, I know you believe you understand what you think I said, but I'm not sure you realize that what you heard is not what I meant. And that is basically the story of my life with regard to technology and technology people.
Wow. That's very, yeah, yep. I live in that world because with having the online institute, I've been, oh my gosh, it's been a whole different mountain of learning, and I'm still don't know many things. And it's absolutely right. You know your content, you know your program, you know everything. So find someone who really click it and do exactly what you need. Oh my gosh, it's so hard.
You know, they need to consider their audience. If you don't know who your audience is, your user, like you said, Anita, could be an 85-year-old
Yep.
to a 5-year-old. You don't know. I had a run-in with Apple. I had to get my phone replaced. Long story, but 5 days before I went in to get my phone replaced due to something that was not my fault, my warranty had expired, my Apple Care or whatever it was. And so I'm on the phone with this guy and I'm like, I've used your products for 20 years. I've never let my app I didn't get any notification. They said, oh, we switched it. It's 6-7 clicks into the phone somewhere where you can find out where your Apple Care is. And I'm like, didn't you used to send emails? And he said, yes, but we stopped doing that. I said, did you let us know that you stopped doing that? And he said, no. And I said, so it's my fault. I said, you got to understand, I'm 65 years old. You're selling to such a wide range of age people with different skill sets. Maybe a 20-year-old would say, hey, maybe it's on my phone somewhere. Let me go try to find it. But you know what I mean? So if you're going to sell and do services and products, you have to know your audience. Because it's not fair. I ended up having to spend $1,500 on a new phone. I got absolutely nowhere with Apple on that one. Nothing. So, to your point, know your audience. I mean, you can't expect people who are in my age bracket to know what even a 5-year-old would know. Because we just didn't grow up with it. It's a challenge.
Yeah, and actually, that was the reason
1,500
why.
if it wasn't under the care. I mean, if your thing hadn't expired, you would not have had to pay the 1,500.
Correct.
Wow.
And you couldn't get them to budge on that.
Nothing. He told me, I said, would you at least let me, and it was a problem with the phone. It wasn't like I dropped it and broke it or anything. There was a software issue with the phone that they couldn't fix. And so I mean, they said we won't even trade it in for you at all. And I'm like, but you need to own your technology. You guys screwed up. The repair people even told me we never sell that phone anymore because it's got all these horrendous problems. But the fact that they didn't own their technology either was more upsetting to me. But yeah, no, and I said if I could detangle myself from Apple, I would. They've lost touch of their customer service and their customers. They just totally lost it. So, but I'm so entwined. I said, you have no problem collecting my Apple TV, my iCloud, my music, and you get that every month. You can't send me an email telling me my Apple Care is going to expire.
Yeah, that's the business model.
Yeah, it is the business model, but getting back to that original conversation with Anita, if you have to own, I mean, my mother-in-law doesn't even know how to operate a cell phone. God forbid, if you don't know how do you survive?
Yep, I know. It's so hard how we become so dependent on that Apple or those devices. Another approach actually is Apple having is people is losing data. So like I have that problem. I have to go 3 times and I think I will move to a Google phone or something different next year because I've been losing my contacts. I mean, my contacts are so important and I lose my contacts. I've been going back and forth and they don't know what it is. And I talk to everybody. So they have a problem. And then I read a whole report that is people who actually is losing data. It goes to supposed to be to the cloud, will disappear. So it's not okay. So yeah, I think that it's just a matter of time that Apple is gonna be not doing like a really losing big
It
time.
used to be the best company, boy.
I know.
mean, they took care of you.
Mhm.
Now, no. I was shocked. I really was. And the guy said, sell your phone on eBay. Go on and put it on eBay. And I'm like, what?
Yeah.
Would you
Yeah.
sell something that doesn't work?
It,
I know, so sad. No, like no, it just
it was, I actually called my son. I was crying in the store. I was crying because it was so upsetting how it was handled and the way, a very, very huge consumer. I mean, I support like 5 phones, 5 watches, 5 everythings, and there was, no, they lost it. But
well, I really appreciate this conversation. Thank you so much, Rosie, for joining us today. We are not going to have this meeting in December because it's the holiday, so we will see each other in January. Thank you so much for being here today, and I love the conversation. I hope you love the conversation as much as I did.
you guys are
I
great.
did. Yeah, it was
Yeah.
great to meet you. It was great.
Yeah.
And happy holidays.
Happy
Thank
holidays,
you. To you
everyone.
too.
Holidays, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Chaito.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Ciao.